Okay, we are reading from the 14 lessons. Today we are starting the 7th lesson, Human Magnetism. Human magnetism, as the term is used in these lessons, is a very different thing from that which public generally terms personal magnetism. Personal magnetism is an attribute of the mind and belongs to the subject of the dynamics of thought. Human magnetism, on the contrary, is a manifestation of prana and belongs to that part of the general subject. The term human magnetism is a poor one, but like many other terms, it is used for want of a better one, and to avoid the coining of new terms, which would likely confuse the student. The Sanskrit contains terms perfectly fitting each phase of the subject, which terms have come into use as the knowledge of the subject grew. And such will be the case as the knowledge of the philosophy of the Orient becomes more generally known to the Western people. New terms fitting to the subject will spring into general use, and the confusion which now exists will cease. We prefer the term human magnetism to that of animal magnetism, as the latter is generally confounded with some manifestation of mesmerism. But this human magnetism is not the sole property of man, for the lower animals possess it to a degree. There is a difference, however. Man is able to consciously direct it by his will and through his thought, while the lower animals use it more or less unconsciously and without intellectual aid or under the control of will. Both the lower animals and man constantly throw off this magnetism or pranic energy unconsciously, but the developed or physically educated man has to force under his control and can either repress it to a great extent or throw off greatly increased quantities of it, and may also direct it to any special place or spot. He can also use it in a connection with his thought waves in order to give the same a greater carrying power and strength. At the risk of being charged with needless repetition, we wish to impress upon your minds that this pranic energy or human magnetism is very different thing from thought force or any exhibition of the power of thought, except that it may be used in connection with thought waves as above stated. It is merely a blind force of nature, just as is electricity or similar forces, and may be used consciously or unconsciously, wisely or foolishly. It has no intelligent action except as directed by the mind of its user. Human electricity would be far more appropriate name for it than is human magnetism, for it resembles electricity far enough than it does magnetism. With this explanation, we will continue to use the term magnetism, asking that you always remember just what we mean by the term. Human magnetism is a form of pranic energy. We have said the same thing about prana in the first lesson. Prana is the universal energy and is found in varying forms in all things animate and inanimate. All forms of force or energy are but manifestations of prana. Electricity is a form of prana. So is the force of gravitation. So is the human magnetism. It is one of the 7 principles of man and is found in a greater or lesser degree of human organisms. Man extracts prana from the air he breathes, the food he eats, and the fluid he drinks. If he be deficient in prana, he becomes weak and lacks vitality, as the term goes. When his supply of prana is sufficiently large for his needs, he becomes active, bright, energetic, and full of life. We have given directions regarding the acquiring and storing of prana, by means of breath in our little book, Science of Breath, and will give directions for its best absorption from food and fluids in the forthcoming book, Hatha Yoga. There is a difference in the amount of prana absorbed and stored up by different persons. Some are surcharged with prana and radiate it like an electrical machine, causing all others with whom they come in contact to feel increased health, strength, life, and vigor. Others are so deficient in prana that when they come into company of other persons, their depleted condition causes them to withdraw into the pranic supply of magnetism of others. The results being that the other person so drawn upon are apt to feel uncomfortable and weak after the interview. Some people are practically vampires and live upon the magnetism of others unconsciously, usually, although some have acquired the knowledge that they may live on other strength in this way and practice their wicked arts consciously. This conscious use of their power is a form of black magic, and it is attended with certain psychic penalties and punishments. But no one can be thus drawn upon either by unconscious demand of others or by conscious design, after they have learned something about this human magnetism and its laws. Human magnetism of pranic energy is the most potent therapeutic force, and in one form or another, it is found in the majority of cases of psychic healing. It is one of the oldest forms of natural healing, and it may be said to be the most instinctive in the race. A child who has hurt itself or feels a pain at once runs to its mother, who kisses the hurt part and places her hand on the seat of the pain, and in a few moments the child is better. When we approach one who is suffering, it is natural for us to place our hands on his brow or to pass our hand over him. This instinctive use of hand is a form of conveying magnetism to the afflicted person, who is usually relieved by the act. The holding of a baby to its mother's bosom is another instinctive act for the same person. The mother's magnetism goes out, propelled by her loving thought, and the child is soothed, rested, and strengthened. Human magnetism may be thrown off from the system by means of desire or thought, or it may be directly passed by another means of the hand, contact of the body, a kiss, the breath, and in similar ways we will speak of this matter again in the 8th lesson on the occult therapeutics. It is impossible to give a plain, clear explanation of just what human magnetism is, unless we go deeper into the deeper occult teachings, which are not fitted for the beginner. To tell what human magnetism is, we must explain what prana is. And in order to tell what prana is, we must go right to the root of the matter and discover the true nature and origin of force, something which modern physical science has failed to do, but which the deeper occult teachings are able to explain, or at least to those who have reached the stage of understanding by the slow, laborious, and gradual steps. It may be urged that we are expecting too much when we ask students to accept as truth the statement that there exists such a thing as human magnetism or pranic energy at all, when we cannot explain its real nature. Replying to this objection, we answer that there are many things which may be proven by their observed effects, although the thing itself cannot be explained in plain terms. Take electricity or magnetism, for instance. We have their existence clearly proved to us every day, but their effects, and yet physical science tell us very little that can be understood about their real nature. And so it is to this other exhibition of pranic energy, human magnetism, we must look to the effects of proof rather than try to solve the mystery of the common source of all forms of prana. But we have had it urged that whereas we can easily observe the effects and outward manifestation of electricity and magnetism, there are no such effects and magnetism of human magnetism or pranic energy. This objection has always amused us. When we remember that every moment of the body, from the mighty effort of the giant to the quiver of the eyelash, is in direct effect and manifestation of this human magnetism or pranic energy. Physical science, Physical scientists call this thing nervous force or similar names, but in the same time, but it is the same thing that we call human magnetism, a form of pranic energy. When we wish to raise a finger, we put forth an effort of will. If the desire is to be a conscious one, or an effort of instinctive mind if the desire is to be subconscious. And a supply of human magnetism is sent to the muscles controlling the movement of the finger. The muscles contract and the finger raises. And so, with every movement of the body, both on the conscious and subconscious plane of effort, every step we take is caused by the same process. Every word we utter is produced in this way. Every tear we shed obeys the law. Even the beating of the heart responds to the supply of human magnetism, propelled in this last case by the command of instinctive mind. The magnetism is sent over the nerves, just as a telegraph sent over the wires leading from the central office to all parts of the land. The nerves are its telegraph wires, and the current in the body always travels over these wires. And just as, until very recent time, it has been thought impossible for messages to be sent without wires, so even to this day, do the physical scientists deny that this human magnetism, which they call the nervous force, can be transmitted except over these wires of the nervous system. And just as scientists have recently discovered that wireless telegraphy is a possibility and a working truth, so have the oculists known for centuries that this human magnetism can be transmitted from person to person through the astral atmosphere without the needs of wires or of the wires of the nerves. Have we helped you form a clear idea of human magnetism? As we stated, human magnetism is taken up by the organism of man from the air he breathes, the water he drinks, and the food he eats. It is extracted in nature's laboratory and stored in the nervous system in a chain of storage batteries, of which the solar plexus in the central and chief storehouse from the storage batteries. And the magnetism is drawn by the mind and set forth to be used for thousands of purposes from which it is attended. When we say drawn by mind, we do not mean that it must be necessarily drawn by an effort of the conscious mind or willpower. In fact, not over 5% of the amount used is so drawn. The remaining 95% being drawn and used by instinctive mind, which controls the function of the body, the workings of the internal organs, the process of digestion, assimilation, and elimination, the circulation of the blood, and various functions of the physical body, all of which are wholly or import under the control and care of the instinctive mind. Nor must it be supposed that magnetism is absent from any part of the body at any time, or absent until it is set there by distinct effort of the mind. The fact that every part of the body contains a greater or lesser amount of magnetism at all times, the amount depending upon the general vitality of the person, which vitality is determined entirely by the total amount of prana of the human magnetism in the system. A brief consideration of the nervous system with its nerve cells, ganglia, plexi, etc., will be advisable at this point in order to gain a clearer idea of the processes of nature and its distribution of the supply of magnetism. The nervous system of the man is divided into two great systems, viz., the cerebral spinal system and the sympathetic system. The cerebral spinal system consists of all that part of the nervous system contained with the cranial cavity and the spinal canal, viz., the brain and the spinal cord together with the nerves which branch off from the latter. The system presides over functions of animal life known as volition, sensations, etc. The sympathetic system includes all that part of nervous system located principally in the thoracic, abdominal, and pelvic cavities, and which is distributed to the internal organs. It controls the involuntary processes as such as growth, nutrition, etc., under the supervision and direction of the instinctive mind. The cerebrospinal system attends to all seeing, hearing, tasting, smelling, feeling, etc. It sets things in motion. It is used by the ego to think, to manifest consciousness and intellect. It is the instrument by which the ego is enabled to communicate with the outside world by means of physical sense. This system has been likened to a great telephone system with the brain and central office, and the spinal column and nerves as cable and wires respectively. The brain is a great mass of nerve tissue and consists of three parts, viz. What is that VIS dot? Does anybody know?
I was just Googling it. It's some sort of like, these trucks keep going by. It's some sort of, let me see. Some sort of like connector word, you know, like when Sue was explaining to me IE, and I was
right, that is.
Yeah, that is.
Okay, I'll get to the bottom of this page and then we'll stop. It's almost
yeah.
Okay.
I think on Wikipedia it's a synonym for namely, that is to say, to wit, which is, or as follows. So it's just like considered.
Oh, okay.
I skip over it.
Okay. The brain is a great mass of nerve tissue and consists of three parts: the cerebellum, or brain proper, which occupies the upper, front, middle, and back portion of the skull, the cerebellum, or the little brain, which fills the lower and back portion of the skull, and the medulla oblongata, which is broadened commencement of the spinal cord lying before the front of the cerebellum. The cerebellum is the organ of the intellect and also of the unfolding spiritual mind. The organ of the manifestation, remember, not the thing itself. The cerebellum is the organ of the instinctive mind. The medulla oblongata is the upper X and large part of the spinal cord, and from it ends the cerebrum branch forth of the cranial nerves, which reach to various parts of the head, to the organs of special sense, and to some of the thoracic and abdominal organs, and to the organs of respiration. The spinal cord or spinal marrow fills the spinal column in the vertebral column of the backbone. It is a long mass of nervous tissue, branching off vertebrae to nerves, communicating to all parts of body. The spinal cord is like a great telephone cable, and emerging nerves are like the private wires connecting therewith. So we're at the beginning of page 100.
Reading.
Sure. I was kind of lost today. I don't know. Well, my mind kept drifting. It's funny when you can read and then not know what you just read. I'm like, wait a second, what did I just read?
Yeah, because you usually connect when you read, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But my mind was somewhere else but I was also doing the task of reading and my mind was like, woo.
Yeah.
The brain is very complex too. So like it's going into all these like things that were like, you didn't have to learn that. It's hard to connect it. Like even I have like anatomy in my background, and that's like a very complex like part of yeah.
So, I mean, were they really saying, like, are we mainly talking about the nervous system?
It's connected. So yes, like I don't know much about it, but the spine and the fluid of the spine is connected with the brain. So it like sends messages to the body.
Mm-hmm.
That's as much as I can explain it.
Like the vayus or the energetic rivers of prana through the body, and they feed those parts that he was talking about. So it's like if you have a toy and you don't put the battery in, the toy's not going to work. Am I on the right path, Pam?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, like he's trying to explain how if you have a lot of energy, like little batteries built up, because you're very you're open to the flow of consciousness and prana, and you do all this work to get your prana really, really high, which is life force, or they call it the smallest energy. And then it sort of like deposits extra energy throughout you, so that the systems that grow out of that energy, out of those energy rivers, can function better. And they're saying that a lot of people who are depleted become energy vampires, who sort of sucking the life out of others. It's an interesting angle on energy vampires. But when we do pranayama every morning, the breathwork practices, we're depositing more and more prana, which strengthens the nervous system. I actually got into this whole discussion with people on TikTok because someone was talking about how there's this like meditator sickness where they'll get like strokes and really dizzy, and they'll pass out all the time, and their blood pressure gets weird and they start vomiting and everything. And it was she asked the question, like, do you think it's the businessman who just started meditating who gets this, or is it the monk who's from Tibet who gets this, or is it like the Westerner who becomes a monk? And the answer is like the Westerner who becomes a monk gets this. And everyone was like, it's because they're all type A, it's because they're type A. And I was like, no, it's because their nervous system isn't developed enough, and they're doing these advanced techniques that make like hordes of prana move through the system, and it burns it out. And these are all like very typical symptoms of somebody whose like nervous system isn't strong enough. So that's why the 8 limbs work together.
Wait, I'm sorry, I'm lost again. What is prana again?
So prana is the smallest unit of energy. And you know how we talk about all these books we've been reading that like you're not the body, you're not the mind, you're something divine, you're an Atman, you're a soul.
Right.
Well, the soul is like the generator of all this prana. So you can get it from that, or you get prana from the sunlight, or the food you eat, or the air you breathe. So what the yogis do is, knowing all this, they know how to manipulate and create a storehouse of extra prana. So they sort of deposit it along the underlayer of the nervous system, so that they're always like these generators. Like he's talking about animal magnetism. Like when you go around these people who are doing these practices, they like glow. They have this really powerful energy. And I think we've discussed in these discussions, like if somebody has bad energy, they can come in the room and then you feel bad.
Yeah.
The idea is that your resonance becomes so strong from all these practices that other people's energies don't affect you. So like people will do meditation practices and they're not doing pranayama and they're not doing asana, which is physical practice. So pranayama is breath work. They're not doing breath work. I'll speak in English. They're not doing breath work. They're not doing physical practice. They're not doing concentration practices. They don't follow the spiritual precepts of like how they should live in the world in relation to other people and in relation to themselves. And it causes all kinds of imbalances. So everything kind of is supposed to be done in conjunction with everything else, is what he's saying. And then you start getting this magnetism that happens because it's like you're glowing with prana.
Ah, okay. I get it now.
Yeah. And so like the problem with that is like you'll get these energy vampires. Pam, I don't know if you've experienced this. I've definitely experienced this in my life where like the more resonance I get, the more I get these people latching onto me with these like energetic ties, because they're trying to like they're needy of prana, they're thirsty for prana, so they try to like take it from you. So like the hardest part of all this journey is like figuring out not only physical boundaries but energetic boundaries too. I think we've been discussing that the past couple of weeks, right? Like these energetic boundaries you have to.
Yeah.
With the thought chapter, when we read dynamic thought, we talked a little bit about this. Like, when you meet someone, you like connect with them. So It's just more than the thought. It's you're literally being drawn to each other.
Yeah.
Whether that person's sucking you in and you need to like put your bubble up like the superheroes do in those movies. Stay out of my bubble. Or learn to say no to certain things. Like I've had to start saying no to things that I liked going to, but they were just sucking the energy out of me. So it didn't bring joy anymore. I don't know how Amanda does it, but sometimes.
Well, that was the effed up thing about like when everyone went into lockdown.
Yeah.
I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
Every morning I'd wake up and be like, wow. No one's draining my energy today.
Well, I feel like in that bubble, I just experienced this with like a personal situation. Like you can make that bubble around you, but the bubble itself is energy. So like I can walk around my bubble all day and like keep people's energy away from me that I don't want near me. But the energy, the outside energy tries real hard to come in. So you got to just keep that bubble stronger, and it just gets exhausting.
Right. That requires prana too.
Yeah. So, and like, I love that we were talking about cafeteria food before class, because the prana flowing through that food probably wasn't the best prana, but like learning to cook for myself and, singing and dancing in your kitchen as you're preparing your own food. And I don't do this, but like the idea of like putting like good intentions into the food, that's creating extra prana into the food, so that when you then eat it, and if you eat it in a way that's very like restoring, like I sit in front of the TV and that's how I eat, which is not restoring for many people. But I tell Eric all the time, like, I just need an episode of Friends or Seinfeld, or like it's the one time I want to watch TV all day long. And that's how I like restore myself. Some people need peace and quiet and need to, like family dinner at the kitchen table. That's not, that causes more anxiety to doing that.
That's a good point, Pam. Like food, some foods give you more prana and other foods give you less prana. So if I go to the garden and I pluck a spinach leaf and put it right in my mouth, that's going to be the highest prana. If I'm getting food that's been shipped across the country and it's been sitting in a truck, it loses prana over time. So like in Ayurveda, you're not supposed to eat leftovers that have been cooked longer than 2 hours. Like it's that level. Like you're supposed to pick the food fresh. Like that's another reason why we should buy local from local farmers, because if it was picked that day and you get it, it's going to have more prana for you. And it kind of makes you think about these areas where there's a lot of poverty and there's like food deserts where they don't have access to fresh food, and the level of consciousness in those areas,
Yeah.
So our food is really important. Our thoughts are really important. The pranayama we do is really important. The people we hang around with is important. The environments are important. It's like all contributing factors of whether you're going to be depleted or you're going to be enumerated with energy, really, essentially.
Yeah, and I think the people we hang out with is important, because thinking about that energy bubble, once you become aware of that bubble,
Yeah.
especially for the empaths, that like one of my best friends just called me on Tuesday night. And thank God I don't store this type of energy, but she was like, I'm not gonna be able to fall asleep until I do this dump on you. So like she gave me like the dump of emotion, and I hung up with her, and I'm like, thank God that I don't sit with it. I think she knows me well enough that she knew she could do that to me. But like we've talked about this with you guys. Like if you're hanging out with people that are constantly trying to get inside your bubble and not respecting the boundary, and those are your like top people, then there's something, you're just gonna feel exhausted all the time. That's why people are always like, I'm not talking like I could get this is where I experience it. Like I'm getting 8 to 9 hours of sleep all day. And this is where like my depression starts kicking in, because I'm just exhausted all the time. Like who's sucking the draining the battery out of me? Like I have a Wii downstairs that I very rarely use. And anytime my nephew comes over, he wants to play the Wii, we go down there and the batteries are in it and it works. But when you open it, like the batteries are just rusted and it's not working that well. And that to me is like what prana, like our prana are our batteries, and they could be working, but when you really look at them, are they like healthy? Are they the best batteries that could be?
Yeah. And then like through trauma, your system gets locked down and the energy can't flow through the channels. So that's another problem. When your prana doesn't flow freely, you get all those meditator symptoms. Like you just feel bad anyway. So like that's why everything has to work together. Like the meditation practice is supposed to help you to disseminate through all those traumas and release them so that energy can flow properly, because we hold our emotions in our physical form. So like if you had some kind of emotional trauma, all the fascia will pull to like the area it's associated with. Like if you had some kind of sexual trauma, all the tightness is going to pull to like your upper pelvis, like where your estrogen, where your gonads are. And if you have some kind of like relational trauma, it can pull to your shoulders or your back, your upper back. If you're having some trauma around not being able to speak truth or having your voice taken away, it starts to form tension in the neck. Like every single part of the body is intuitive that way. So like it's just all supposed to work together for you to really flow freely. That's why he's talking about Hatha Yoga. In this chapter, when we read Hatha Yoga Pradipika, they were going through all the different techniques you can do to purify the body, to open the body, to eliminate the traumas, to get your prana flowing freely, and then your resonance gets higher.
It's interesting.
Your battery. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
It was interesting to bring up this meditator sickness. I don't know if I've ever heard of it, but I feel like lately I've been meditating, but I feel like I'm making myself more unhealthy because I'm bordering on this border of possibly getting professional therapy, which is never something I have considered. I always knew I would get to this point, but I feel like here I am, and this is that just expression of trauma living in my body. And I feel like what the meditation practice has been doing is just taking a junk closet and just putting everything in it. Like all my emotions, feelings, and thoughts have been now in this junk closet for all these years. And I have reorganized it 5,000 times through my meditation practice, but it's still here. It's still in my body. And I need someone to just help me purge the closet. Like I'm ready to just like get it out of my body, because no more amounts of meditation practice is allowing me to clear that. Something feels, and that's why like I was talking to you guys the other day, like I'm like, I got to do a whole chakra cleansing. I feel it.
Well, that's the thing with like why they say you're not really meditating until you get those skills, right? So you have to have the skill of being able to relax, being able to breathe really calmly, being able to sit up tall, being able to look at your thoughts one at a time and then in streams of thoughts, and then decide if the thought is helpful or not, if it's colored with addiction or aversion. And then you favor the positive thoughts until you restructure your brain, which is like all the work you've been doing. So if you're feeling ready to finally go to the therapist, it must mean that your brain feels ready, like it can handle processing that stuff. And that's huge, Pam.
No, I know it's huge and it's scary, but it's all like good. I know it is. But yeah, I think because it's more like this. I think if I continue with this meditation practice without taking that next step, I will make myself sick somehow. Like I just can't keep reorganizing the same closet over and over again.
Yeah, something's locked up. Therapy really helps with bringing that stuff to the surface.
So, because I know I need it for myself because I've been walking around telling everyone else they need therapy. I'm like telling everybody, I'm like, you need professional help. You need, and I'm really just talking to myself. I'm not even telling people they need therapy. I say, I'm like, you need professional help. I can't help you.
It's hilarious.
Yeah.
I've been feeling like once in a while, last night it happened, and then it happened like a week ago. I'm just like angry, really, really angry, and I'm trying to pinpoint like where it's coming from or why. Just angry.
Oh my God, you have to listen to Amanda's Dharma talk from this week on Monday.
Oh, really?
I feel like Amanda covered that in class with the pitta and just being aggravated and annoyed.
Yeah, it's pitta season.
Oh, holy crap. Sorry.
Yeah, it's just like,
It's okay.
I have to be like super careful about what foods I'm eating now. Like I can't activate the already high pitta.
I mean, I could find I'm angry because of this, but I'm like, I just feel angry. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, when you can't find the source, it's like definitely your fire is really high.
Crazy.
Yeah, just eat cucumbers all day and forward fold over your legs.
Yeah, just wait for the like unhinged anxiety for no reason coming in the fall.
Oh yeah, that's coming no matter what. It always does.
Yep. It's the season. Well, that's the thing. Like the more balanced you get, the more prana you get through your system from all these techniques, then the seasons won't affect you as badly. And like if you have a balanced diet for your constitution and then you eat seasonally and locally, the foods that the earth is giving you at the time that you're in will help to balance you internally, right? If in this region, we don't normally get a tomato, which is like very heating and very acidic until the fall, but you're getting like hothouse tomatoes shipped to you from Mexico, at the wrong, and you're eating it in the beginning of pitta season, you're going to be a mess. So it's like there's a certain innate intelligence in the earth, in the body, that if we just got back to nature, then, we wouldn't have such extreme symptomology, is my point.
Yeah.
So like Pam's saying, watch what you eat. Just like in this world, we have to just be a little bit more mindful of all the things we do. I wish you heard my Dharma talk last night, Pam. I've been like so frustrated with weeding. And the only reason I have to weed is because like I don't have a proper, what do they call it? Like a permaculture forest where the stuff just comes up and goes on its own and it like deals with itself. I've like planted all these non-native things in my garden and then like put too much space between them. There's just like 10,000 weeds all the time, and it's the idea is like we as human beings are placed in an unnatural environment. So like we're constantly having to pick weeds out of our mind, like constantly. That's what we do every morning, right? We meditate, we do these contemplation talks, and it's like picking the weeds so that we can flourish. But I think in natural environments, it's easier to flourish. It's easier to have high prana. I always think about the Native Americans. They, if when the Westerners first came, or are they Eastern? Are they considered East to America? Like the
Yeah.
Europeans came.
Yeah.
They they were writing about them that they were so strong and so healthy and they had so much energy and they never got sick. And they were like always outside and just running barefoot and eating the food that the earth gave them. And it makes you like a superhuman.
Yeah.
They also like super concentrated on breathing through the nose.
Really?
Yeah. So they would hold I was been reading that book on breathing. I didn't finish it. And they hold the baby's mouth closed so that it forces them to breathe through the nose.
Interesting. So they were doing a little pranayama too, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be a perfect, like it's definitely like you don't have to cleanse your whole diet. If you just bring attention to one thing, it just brings your attention like, oh, if I don't eat a tomato today, then maybe I won't be so angry, or like
I did eat tomatoes yesterday and eggplant.
yeah,
So
oh yeah, there you go.
that was
That's
it.
what I had too, a tomato and eggplant. So like you don't have to stress yourself out over it. It's just like one little change. Like I stopped putting so much tomato in my salad all summer, but I still eat pizza with red sauce on it. Like it doesn't have to be perfect. It's just like moderation.
Yeah, I use the 3-day rule. If I eat 3 days of acidic foods, I'm a freaking mess. So I could have 1 day, but then I gotta be good the next day. I could have 2 days and it's gonna take me a longer time to be good, but 3 days and I'm out for the count.
3 strikes and you're out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the food is only one part of it, but like be
Yeah.
careful who you're hanging out with, the activities you're doing, the amount of sweat you're producing, the sun, the heat. Make sure you stay cool. The clothes you're wearing, and then like on top of the actual issue that's going on, or you think that's causing it, like be mindful of that. All right, let's do some meditation because it's already 8:20. So we'll do pranayama and meditation. And if you need to drop early, you of course can, since we've went over, but I will stay on. I will be cleaning out my mental closet and reorganizing it again. Domenica, the other thing that really helps me with angry and annoyance is that gratitude practice. So writing down 3 things, even if you don't write them down, just every time you feel that anger, just change it to gratitude. It's really hard to do, but you just practice it.
Yeah. Thanks.
All right, so let's sit up nice and tall or lay down, finding that straight spine, breathing in and out through the nose. And then bring a right hand over to the face, close the right nostril with the thumb, inhale through the left. Close left, exhale right. Inhale right. Close right, exhale left. Inhale left. Close left, exhale right. Inhale right. Close right, exhale left. Inhale left. Close left, exhale right. Inhale right. Close right, exhale left. You can continue on a few more rounds or settle into the meditation. I'm going to set the timer. Bringing hands to heart center. Namaste.